coming to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely, and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that we will strive to maintain the technology and the connection. If there is a problem, please let us know, text, email. We'll do our best to reconnect you. Nevertheless, the meeting will continue. Maybe we should start with norms? Yes.
Just going to reread the WSESD board meeting norms, seeing we've come together as a new group. So just touch base with them. And again, it's a living document, so we can change anything at any time. If we want to, adjust something, we can put it on the agenda and review them. But they are: use sensitivity when discussing school matters, engage in respectful and non-judgmental listening, assume positive intentions, be accountable for impact. Board discussions should include all voices equally, be mindful of each other's time, and shared responsibility.
Okay. And if anyone has any concerns about the norms at any point, send an email and we'll get it on the agenda.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Point of order, would it be prudent for the board to ratify these norms, having been recently reseated?
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Then, in light of that, I move that we readopt the norms as written.
Second.
I heard a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The norms as they exist have been ratified by this board. Thank you very much. The consent agenda. If there are any concerns about the consent agenda, please indicate those concerns at this point or right before we get to consent agenda. The goal is to approve the consent agenda with one motion. I do have an amendment to the minutes of March 11. On the second page, which begins with Pietro Lynn. And this was discussing the change to past practice. The notations say WSESU annual meeting on the 18th, and that the WSESU raised a question. I think it should read the WSESD. Okay, this was an SD board meeting and an SD issue. All right, thank you. And as we begin, I want to thank Kim Price for searching and locating an amazing plaque for Sean Murphy. That was an amazing gift, and yes.
Yeah, that was fun.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other amendments? Tim?
I don't know if it's the right place, but just a comment. We get a lot of emails and a lot of things to read, and sometimes the warrants just kind of slip by us. We don't all have time to read the warrant. Just a comment that it's okay to abstain when voting for the warrants if you haven't read them. That's appropriate to abstain, in fact, if you haven't read the warrants at all. Just a comment.
Yes, and I think that goes even broader than the warrants in terms of abstaining.
Policies too, yeah.
So true, yes, okay. Any other concerns before we begin? Any amendments to the agenda? All right, let's go to student matters. I don't know if any students are online, but this is time to present issues, concerns, questions. I do not see any students online.
Nobody's-
Okay. All right, so with that in mind, we are gonna move on to public comment on non-agenda items. This is a time for the board to listen and to take notes. It is not a time for the board to respond to comments or to engage in a dialogue with the public. If appropriate, the board and administration will work on next steps. So, public comment on non-agenda items. Okay. All right, with that, we are moving on. So, board matters. I just want to follow up on a comment that Matt Shibley made at, I think, the last board meeting regarding 10 board members, 10 leadership councils. And I want to just raise the issue, to what extent are we as a board committed to serving on LCs as well as serving on committees? So those procedures, those protocols are not written anywhere, they're not in a policy, but I certainly remember when I came on board, the then chair instructed me that the assumption was, number one, a leadership council, number two, that I would serve on 2 committees. I don't know if that's acceptable, but as I look at the agenda, we are going to talk about leadership councils and also just the subcommittees, just to review that. So, are we prepared to talk about leadership councils today and go through that? Okay, I see nods. All right, leadership councils. Someone has to help me with the names of the schools. I know them, but okay, let's just start. Go for it, please.
So do you want me to just read them all off?
Let's just go one by one. One by one, I think. Okay, and let's just hear who is assigned to that.
Academy.
Okay, who? Colleen. Okay, thank you.
Are we just asking for what we're currently in?
Or are you staying with that for now?
I'm happy to do so.
Okay, sure. Colleen, got it. Okay.
BAMS.
BAMS.
Me.
I'm sorry?
Me.
Tim. Okay, and you're staying there?
I don't know, because I have 2 leadership councils, so I have to see how it goes.
I can do BAMS if you want to only do one.
Well, there's the other one I have is early education services, and I love them both. It's really great to work with Keith, to work with Deb, but I haven't got time, and it's not right for one board member to have 2 leadership councils. The other issue is, should EES, and for that matter, the career centers, count as a leadership council assignment, because they're technically not leadership councils following the leadership policy.
Okay, let's hold that for the moment. Okay, I'm gonna continue. We're gonna, yes, go
But
ahead.
just with, I know policy council for EES, it's mandated that we have somebody in there just part of the federal funding.
That's right, but should it be considered a leadership council if it doesn't follow to the letter the leadership council policy?
Okay, do those meetings at EES meet once a month?
Yes.
Okay.
They
so-
do, and the next one is Friday at 12:30. So we should decide who's going to be EES.
EES. Okay, I appreciate that EES is not a leadership council, but we do need someone assigned to EES. So, and EES meets during the day. Is that what you're saying, regularly?
12:30.
Okay, so EES, let's talk about EES. Who can do EES in the middle of the day? Tim can, Brian can. Okay, so Brian, do you want to take on EES?
Well, do you have another?
I don't at this time, no.
Oh, okay, then that's good.
Okay.
And
So,
I'll stay with BAMS and he'll pick ES.
okay. Okay, Brian, EES,
Next up is BUHS.
BUHS.
Ruby's well timed.
Ruby's well timed. Hi, Ruby. Leadership Council? Yes? You want to stay there? You're
Sure.
there? Okay.
Yes, I love you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ruby. Next.
Dummerston.
Okay, Dummerston, I've been doing, is that okay, Jessica, with you? Okay, we talked about it, yeah. Okay, Dummerston, okay, good. All right,
Green Street.
Green Street,
And I've been holding that one. I'm happy to continue. I also have grown quite fond of Oak Grove as well.
okay. So I'm gonna do Green Street and Oak Grove, back to back. So, Oak Grove, Green Street.
Do you have a preference either way, Jessica?
They both meet on Mondays and I cannot do Mondays.
Oh, this is.
Okay, all right.
I
Green-
could do Green Street if you wanted to switch. Sorry. I don't want to though. I love my academy. But I don't I know, me too. But I'm like, I just want to throw it out if it's gonna be problematic and you don't have one. Like, could they meet on Wednesdays?
Yeah,
Wednesdays?
Thursday.
Am I making that up? Yeah, Thursday.
I'm fine with that. The only two that I absolutely cannot do are Green Street and Oak Grove.
Oh, okay,
You can have
okay.
Green Street, I'll take Oak Grove.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm sorry, could you, I just heard that flip and I lost it.
I'm coming to the next one still.
Colleen is Green Street,
Colleen is Green Street,
Matt is Oak Grove,
Matt is Oak Grove,
and Academy is Jessica.
okay, Jessica, good. All right. Sir, next,
Guilford.
Guilford,
I put in for Guilford.
okay, Guilford,
Yes.
Jocelyn.
Yep.
Okay, this is moving pretty quickly. Matt, can you stay with us, please?
Yes, so sorry.
I'm Putney.
Which one are we doing next?
Putney, I'm Putney.
Okay. You'll get even with me, I know that. Okay, I'm waiting for this one, yes.
It's all good.
Okay,
And I believe
Colleen.
that's it for the 10.
okay,
There's the
1,
question
2,
of the
3,
Career
4,
Center.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got the Career
And
Center.
Ann usually does the.
Yeah, the Career Center is also required by statute.
Got it. So Ann, I'm gonna keep you there, is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Is that it?
And Deborah, can I just say something about the Career Center?
You may.
And that is that I would like to keep Ann because Ann has been a Career Center representative for a long period of time. And as we are looking at reorganization at the state level, I think having her historical information and her understanding of career and tech ed will be invaluable.
Yeah, institutional knowledge is
I
critical
really
at this
think.
point. Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you, Ann.
Yes. Yeah, I respond to both.
I think that that's really wise, and I also know that Ann's really interested in staying on. I do think it's important for us to diversify and be aware of everything, and I made a deliberate move from Putney to BUHS, and it's been awesome getting to know people there, the administrator. The whole vibe is different and in different and good ways. And when I served on EES, and I think that was really valuable. I do think that the Career Center is a very different mechanism.
Yeah.
And I don't know that now is a time to change, but it may be a good idea for all of us to consider popping in or getting to know some of the leadership councils that we haven't gone to, including the Career Center's advisory council, the big one that they do.
I agree.
Well, and maybe in the fall, we look to rotate, because I've found it, beneficial being on Putney. And going to different towns.
Right.
And that might be a good time because all of the leadership councils are reconstituting at that point.
There's benefit in going online and looking at agendas and minutes, and getting a feel for it, Zooming, and as you're saying, attending as a just attending. Just as we struggle to visit schools, especially when classes are in session, obviously not popping in uninvited. But Tim.
Yeah, I'd just like to support what Ruby just said about the benefit of rotating. I've been on 3 so far, Oak Grove, the high school, and middle school. And I think it's just given me a much better sense of what's happening, at least in those schools. And also, I think what you say, Kim, makes a lot of sense. Instead of changing midstream, let's wait until the fall to reconsider assignments.
Okay, all right, great. And I wanted to just verbally go through the committees, what happened at the last meeting, just to make sure everybody is aware. Communication, I have down Jessica, Ruby, and Matt. Finance, Ruby and Kim. Yes? Yes.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
No, it's not enough, we know.
Look, 2 more.
Okay, so finance, this is like, the bid is out, come on, you know? Yes.
I'm volunteering for that.
I'm sorry, you're what?
I'm volunteering for finance.
Finance, okay, Tim, thank you. Okay, and I'm just gonna say, whether you're a voting board member or not, attend finance, especially during budgetary season. It's really beneficial, and it makes a big difference to sit in a finance meeting and then come to a meeting with that information. Policy is Deborah, Ann, and Colleen. Personnel, Ann, Colleen, and Jocelyn. Programmatic and performance equity, Brian, Jocelyn, Ruby, and Jessica. Somehow that one got a big hit, didn't it? Yes, okay. Social justice, Jocelyn and Matt. Okay, and I would recommend that as we set up appointments, that the rest of the board knows so that we can pop in. Right. Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested in giving that a try to start. I don't know how much I can put on my plate, but it's important, an important committee. So.
Yeah, social justice.
Yeah.
Okay, Ruby. I feel the same way, but I'm not going to put my name down for anything right now,
Yes,
other than, yes.
Can I ask a question about personnel?
About personnel, sure. Ann, you're online, personnel.
So,
Tim.
personnel.
I am.
Yeah, if you read the minutes from the last 2 years, those are like, during the school year, there are 4 or 5 minute meetings. And considering the amount of time to post the agenda, to post the minutes, to basically approve what we already approve in the warrants, because all of the 1% funding is gone through is included in the warrants. And considering the administrative hassle for principals and teachers to write up the 1% proposals, wouldn't it be better just to have the personnel work during the summer to approve new hires and not go through all this bureaucracy of having a personnel committee during the school year? I remember I brought this up last year, and Keith, I think, you said, yeah, it's some administrative hassle to do the 1% forms.
Okay, so a question has been posed regarding personnel. Any comment?
The comment I have is I don't know how we came to use this system to approve 1% funds. If we wish to change the system, we can, but we should probably find out why we do it, what the requirement is, and again, if we want to eliminate it, we need to have a motion. But I am fine with that.
Okay.
Though I must admit, it is certainly the most fun of these school committees because you do get to read about the exciting ideas that our staff are coming up with.
All right, so I'm going to ask personnel to consider the question that's been raised, and we'll come back to it. Okay? All right. And, okay, and then for now, the Student Advisory Committee, which is not a committee, so I want to keep it off the plate. It's something very different, but I know it was raised as if it was a committee at the last meeting. I'm going to keep it off the plate, okay? Right now, it's Tim and Deborah. Yes.
So I understand it's not a committee in the same way.
Yes.
But what is if it's not a committee, then what is the appointment cycle and?
Have no idea.
Okay.
Yes, have no idea. I know that right now we're sort of in a state of flux, and we are about to put out Student Advisory Committee, that's where we were, isn't it? And so at this point, we're about to put out a bulletin asking for applicants for next year. So let us go through that process. In progress. Let us go through the interviewing, and then we open it up. Okay, at the end of the school year. Okay. All right. Okay, that takes care of that. Agenda items. I'm sorry. Board matters. Leadership Council updates. Anything from Colleen?
Academy has a couple of things worth sharing. They have a craft fair that's going to be held on May 3rd, and it is open for any students from any school to sell their crafts and easy for me to say, participate. And they also have had community school activities supported by grant funds are underway. They include a mentoring volunteering program with college-bound refugee students, flood mitigation on school grounds, and cooking, math and literacy materials created in conjunction with community-based organizations that will be modeled and distributed to families at the spring conference. And they're also asking for family feedback on obstacles they're facing getting students to come to school on time, tackling tardies task force. We'll be making phone calls and forming a focus group this spring. Important work for improving the school climate and the family-school partnership.
Yeah. And that sounds like a lot of family issues. Yes, yeah. Right, yes, within elementary school. Any other Leadership Council updates? Tim?
Yeah, I don't know why the minutes aren't posted yet, but BAMS continues to have a very good, strong Leadership Council. And for the second time this year, we've had a breakfast with very little planning. It's like, hey, if you want to bring something for breakfast, bring it. Show up at, around 8 o'clock, before 8 o'clock, and meet teachers. And I have to say that Keith makes an awesome scrambled egg. He brought a huge plate of scrambled eggs. Everybody brought donuts and pastries and stuff. It was just another really good event.
Okay, great. All right. Any other Leadership Council?
And eggs are expensive.
No kidding. Yes. Any other? We should get chickens in our backyards. Any other Leadership Council updates? Okay, Board Subcommittee updates and SU updates. Okay, moving on.
If you want the SU, Deborah,
yes,
the SU met last Wednesday. We reorganized. Welcome aboard our new members, Kim and Brian. And we approved the hire of the WSCSU's very first food nutrition director, Harley Sterling. Welcome aboard, and we're really excited about the new program.
Thank you very much, Anne. That's great. Thank you. Tim?
So there's a task force, the multilingual task force. It's called the LAO Committee. It's because LAO. It's because every 3 years, according to the LAO, the federal LAO law, multilingual programs, ELL programs, now called ML, multilingual learners programs, have to be evaluated. Deb Coons and Jen Kors put together a really nice committee, which includes international students, staff, myself. And for the next month or so, we're going to be reviewing every aspect of multilingual education in the district, from the way it's delivered, the way it's assessed. So it's a nice little committee.
Great, thank you. Any other announcements? All right, I'm going to move on. Board reorganization. We did leadership councils, we talked about committees. One thing that we did not just confirm, Robert's rules, we've been doing small boards. We comfortable with that? With a second, and that just sort of cements the motion? Okay, I see nodding heads, okay. And the option that the chair retains the right to vote. Okay. There was a request to discuss criteria in creating board agendas.
Yes. Oh, wow.
So I am silent on that, waiting for board feedback on that.
Okay. Sorry, I'm talking a lot again. But yeah, we talked about the board agenda being based on board goals, which we haven't yet established, and how the agenda should always align with board goals and, of course, district goals. But since we haven't got board goals, we can't really align the agenda with those board goals. But I hope that soon we can seriously have a serious conversation about whether to have board goals or not. In the governance core, I mean, not just the governance core, but any book that you read about effective board governance, boards have goals. They set goals. They set the direction. This is not new. We almost had board goals some time ago when we had a retreat with Christina over at Oak Grove.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a really good start on it, and then things happened and we just never got back to it. Before that, we had another retreat at the EES conference room. And we got a good start on it, and it just never was followed through with. I think it would behoove the board to have goals, and to use those goals as a basis for setting the agenda. Other thoughts about the agenda. We're not governed by the board. We're not governed by a superintendent. We're governed by policies. That's the way it works in Vermont. And I think that every agenda should give thought to the policies that govern us, if they're being implemented well, if they're being communicated well. The policy committee reviews and amends new and existing policies, but they're not charged with ensuring that board goals are really being implemented or communicated. So I think another thought in setting agenda items would be a consideration of key policies. And then other considerations, we are driven by, our decisions are driven by data, good data. And I think that on occasion we should have reports that are included in the agenda, not presentations, but reports from the administration to address the work of the board. Underscoring all this, I think, is the mission, which of course should be student-centered. Everything we do on the board should be driven by our mission to provide better quality education for students. And well, yeah, I won't get into goals, but I guess those are my thoughts on the agenda. It's kind of a given that there should be a balance between long-term agenda items where we sustain a conversation on issues that demand sustained conversation, and those other items that demand urgent action. Those are just a few of my thoughts. Anybody else?
Ruby.
I have been satisfied with how the agendas have been formulated. I feel confident that when I send something, a comment or a question, it circles around. I do, and I think we've talked about this before, I think it is wise to be a little bit more systematic in how we track some of the issues that come up so that we don't lose them. So I would appreciate that. But the thing that Tim raises that I think is another, it's one of those things that could get lost. I do think that we have not done a very good job as a board of setting our own goals of what the direct our work. And we know that because we were in retreats that didn't actually result in the thing we wanted, which were goals. And those are different than the district level goals that are set, which did happen, and and as a work in progress, it's a progress point of like how do we do it from year to year. But I guess I would just underscore that comment of Tim's that I actually think it would be nice if we as a board could get it together and whatever they look, maybe they don't look like what we're expecting them to, but have something that can help to guide how we approach our work that may help in how agendas are, what they look like. So I just wanted to thank you for raising that point.
Mm-hmm. Matt.
I too will echo Tim and Ruby's sentiments regarding setting goals as a board. I think would be incredibly wise. I too echo Ruby's sentiments around the agenda being set. I've been comfortable with that as well and found that process to be sufficient. I would love to remind the board of one thing that was particularly important to me on the retreats that Tim also brought up in terms of board self-evaluation. That metacognitive reflection, I think there's opportunity for the board to become more efficient. So I would encourage us to consider how we do that.
Yeah. Okay. Do individuals want to work on this? Planning it? It may be a retreat. It may be a retreat that we do that is warned. It may be a retreat that we do off-site. I guess it has to be a retreat that's warned if we're talking about goals, because it's board business. I just flipping it back in my head, right? So I think we need a committee to work on this. Yes, Matt.
Sorry, point of order. Would asynchronous work of the board be subject to open meeting law?
Can you be clearer about what you're asking?
Yeah, so essentially if all the board members were working, say, on a Google Doc,
yeah,
right? But ostensibly, we were doing it one at a time,
yeah,
and that document was shared,
yeah,
right? Would we meet quorum on that? Just an information seeking.
If it's a quorum, mm-hmm. It has to be warned.
And I think if it's board business, that's
mm-hmm.
a document that needs to be shared.
Yep.
With the public.
Then we can't share it generally.
Could,
mm-hmm.
sorry, one further
mm-hmm.
put to it. If the Google Doc was visible to the entire community,
mm-hmm.
but it is a living document, but not editable by the community, only editable by board members, would that be sufficient to meet open meeting law?
It's a great question. I'm not sure.
Because I wonder about the utility of us as board members and our time commitments that don't necessarily align. We've had multiple retreats that have been long. Perhaps we would find efficiency to be able to work on something collaboratively but asynchronously
mm-hmm.
as a group.
I'm afraid that when we did that formerly in Putney, someone literally had to take away permissions every time we broke up. We were meeting together, working on a document, and in order to comply with open meeting law, we had to take away permissions when the meeting ended. So I know that information about this has been sought before.
Okay. Ruby?
I think that, although I think what Matt's suggesting is, I understand and is valiant in a lot of ways, it really is not all that attractive to me. I'm not sure that I would want that. But I do think that there might be creative ways to not necessarily, like to do the work that we're talking about asynchronously, like separately, not even in the same document, but just like gathering data and putting it together to get out into the world. I also think that I don't know, there's work that the board can do to think about and consider and get ourselves into a position where we even understand what our goals could be, that can happen in a retreat format and doesn't need to be warned. And that's what we've done essentially. We just have not, we've kind of spun our wheels on some of those things. Because I think the idea was always to then turn, open up the meeting after a retreat, and if there's a decision or action around goal setting, we would do it then. But the work that gets us to a point where we can actually make that decision doesn't need to be warned. I think that was my understanding. Because I think we need to move on from this, I am happy to be part of that kind of the work that happens in terms of thinking through how, it's important to me that our board be productive, and I think goal setting is part of that productivity. I would be happy to work with other people. I don't want to do it alone, and I don't think we even need a leader, but I don't really want to be the leader. If there is one.
I would help.
Okay, Kim?
I'd be interested in doing that, and just a reminder, 5 is not a quorum, correct?
5 is
members.
not a quorum, that's correct.
So we can have up to 5 and not worry about the open meeting law.
That's right, that's right. Okay, so Ruby, Kim, and Tim for now, okay?
And is that to plan some sort of retreat, or that's to work on goals? I'm not clear on what.
It's to brainstorm
Okay.
how we get to goals, whether we do it in an unwarned retreat.
Okay.
And as Ruby said, just what are the goals? Where are we going with this? When we've had a retreat in the past, we've had to get through a lot of the morass of our working relationships. And suddenly a 4-hour retreat with dinner goes by very quickly. And invariably, at the 3.5-hour marker, we actually need another 2 hours because we're there. We've finally warmed up to the issue and it's over. So I think so how do we get to that 3.5-hour marker, after 30 minutes of warm up? So I think that's part of what needs to be considered. We've had some, I think, excellent facilitators. So I think maybe we want to consider who we're working with and move on with this.
I'd like to be involved too.
Okay. Jessica, thank you. I need a lead person on this, otherwise it just sits. It just sits. So I hate to say, I'm looking around the room, because otherwise we have 4 people, Ruby, Kim, Tim, and Jessica. So obviously a meeting needs to be set up.
I'll set up the meeting.
Okay, Jessica, thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, moving along.
Deborah, I need to break in momentarily. There are 2 people in the waiting room whose names I don't recognize.
Got it.
I'm sorry to announce them in public. Franklin Green, Susan Lee. Anybody?
Okay, we're not, say that again, please.
Franklin Green and Susan Lee.
Okay. All right. Nobody's recognizing those names. Okay.
Is there a way to communicate with them when they're in the waiting room?
There is not.
All right.
I did remove somebody whose first name was Nuke earlier. I decided that was probably our visitor again.
Right.
So.
Right. Oh, golly. That's
I would
such a.
admit them.
Say it again, Tim.
I would admit them. It's a public meeting.
Okay. Yeah, it is a public meeting. So, oh, golly. Let's. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Not
Okay, wait, there's side comment.
They're gonna try to do the same thing.
Okay,
I mean,
Ruby.
I think that the wisdom that I remember from the times when I was Zoom bombed during COVID is that you do have to admit people and keep. It means that Anne's job just got much more complex. You know, you have to keep your finger on the shut it down button. Yeah, you're helping. Okay, so Matt's helping you.
Okay, got it. So Matt is backing you up, and
message the person in the waiting room.
golly. All right. So I think Anne, the decision.
Who's the host then?
Okay, and I think the decision at this point is to admit them. And we've got two people, you and Matt Shibley, with fingers on the button to nip this in the bud. Okay, so okay.
Taking naps on this?
Be brave, Anne.
I'm laughing at Keith. Okay, yes. All right. So one thing about the agenda, I sent out a form that I sort of lifted from the prior board chair. We meet every other week. So I send out a form Thursday, Friday of this week, asking for items for the next board meeting by Tuesday, which is that midway point. I need to get an agenda to the central office by Wednesday evening, Thursday morning at the very latest. So Tuesday is even pushing it for me, depending upon what my own timing looks like in my personal life or board life. So are those notifications useful? Do you need them, or should we forgo it? You need them.
Yeah.
It's good to have it's not driving you crazy.
No.
Got it. Okay, so be it. All right. I'll send it out tonight. Okay, thank you. The final point under board matters, consideration of a donation to the Rural School Community Alliance. I sent around Pietro Lynn's response. We have a yes on that. Unequivocal, no doubt about it. And at this point, the steering committee of the RSCA, the Rural School Community Alliance, they are aware of this as well, the yes from Pietro Lynn. So, do we want to discuss a donation this evening?
Yes.
Okay, Tim.
So, I think from the annual district meeting, it was very encouraging to see the overwhelming support of the Rural Schools Community Alliance. And I think it's clear to most of us that the important work of these alliance, how important it is to the future of education in Vermont and our district. And I think we fully know that their work and their voice in the legislature depends on a professional lobbyist. The firm the RSCA employs now is Leonine Public Affairs.
Here we go. All right, we're moving on. Yes, go ahead.
Do you want me to post anything now to social media in case to alert people that if you're in the Zoom, you have access, but if you do, but we will no longer be, we're having technical difficulty, we'll no longer be admitting access, so. Okay.
I think that's considerate.
And I can let people know to email the board email address, and I can monitor that.
Okay, thank you very much.
It is 7 p.m., but who knows, someone's like.
Okay, it's
a shame if they're
it's a little exhausting.
Ruby, could they email with their name?
Nobody currently in the waiting room.
No one in the waiting room, okay.
Can we just say it might be a familiar name? And
yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Let's go back to discussion of the donation.
Okay, so the Alliance has a really great lobbying firm. And he's been supported so far by donations from individual members of the Alliance and donations from school districts like ours. To continue this crucial work, tonight I'm asking our board to make a donation. So I move that the WSESD school board.
Is this another one?
No, that was someone.
That was just an accidental unmute from somebody.
Okay, got it. That's it. Yeah.
PTSD, oh my lord. What are we gonna hear?
Wait a minute, the admin presentation is about wellness. Good. Yes, okay. All right, so we need to bring this down to a breathable moment. Because I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm like a little on edge right now, because this is not pleasant.
I know you're anxious to know how much I'm asking for.
Yes, we are, because you're making a motion, yes.
So, I move that the WSESD School Board donate $4,626 to the Rural Schools Community Alliance to continue its work with legislators to promote meaningful education reform in Vermont. At this point, any idea why it's $4,626? That represents $2 for every student in our district. Not much at all. The RCA supports reform that strengthens rather than dismantles Vermont's public education system, that supports elementary schools as community hubs that enhance early learning and contribute to the local economic development. Our donation will help enable the RCA promote the retention of local voice and decision-making instead of a one-size-fits-all top-down approach proposed by the governor. Considering the generosity of other districts and individuals, including members of our public, I feel $4,626 is very reasonable. Consider, for example, the Lincoln School District in northern Vermont. It's a very small district that donated $2,000 out of its $5 million budget. We have a budget that approaches $68 million, and we're asking for $4,626. The school board budget can very easily bear this donation. With the fiscal year coming to a close in a few months, our budget line for professional services, correct me if I'm wrong, is about $100,000. I doubt very much that we're going to deplete that budget line. Is that accurate? Does anybody know? I think it's about $100,000. But we have a lot in our board budget. We can afford it, and I think it would be money very well spent in support of our students, schools, and communities.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, wait 1 second. We've got a second. Got it. Thank you.
I just would like to confirm, is the move that you are moving that the board donates that dollar amount to the Rural School Community Alliance, and that's the end of the motion,
Yeah,
or is there
I'll give
more
you
to it? I just didn't know if you wanted all of that as part of the motion.
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I captured through that it's just that amount to the Alliance.
Thank you.
Yep,
Yes.
okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, open for discussion. We have a second. Open for discussion. Jessica.
Tim, do you know, I think with the last we heard from them, they were trying to raise 40 or 50,000. Do you know how close they are to their goal?
Good question. I know that Dan MacArthur is a key person in fundraising, and he hasn't really started. So far, the amount, I think it's about close to $2,000 that's been raised. That's been just donated without much effort at all. So
I'm sorry, can I just, I'm having trouble with the acoustics in the room. Dan MacArthur said how much has been raised to date?
To date, I believe I know they spent, I don't know how much has been raised, but they spent about $1,700.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, they spent $1,700?
Right.
For what?
For our lobbyists.
To secure them as.
Yeah, the lobbyists have been doing great work.
Okay.
Okay, I think there is a question about how much has already been raised, because I realize that, because I do believe it's more than $2,000 that they've raised.
Well, the target is $40,000.
I appreciate that, yeah. I remember reading something about a dollar amount, and I don't remember, but it seemed to me it was more than.
Oh, it must be, because $2,000 alone came from Lincoln.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, yeah.
Yeah, I know community members have donated thousands of dollars. Yeah, so that's wrong.
Yeah, okay. So I know money is coming in at this point. I certainly don't have a dollar figure. Okay, open for discussion. Jessica.
I have another question. With you said about 100,000 we have in our board budget for this.
For professional services.
For professional services.
Which is the line that it would come from.
Okay, what happens if those funds don't get spent down? Where do they go?
Back to the taxpayers.
So to the general fund, or okay?
Into the general fund. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Other discussion, questions. Ruby.
I think that the work that the Rural Schools Community Alliance is doing is really important. I think, as Tim mentioned, I think there was really very heartening support in the annual meeting. And so from my, I believe from what I've read of the, and the website, like looking at all the information, the work of the lobbyist is really critically important, and lobbyists cost money. So I think if we've signed on, there was no requirement to pay money, we've signed on, but if we really truly believe in supporting this work and the group that's doing it, I think what we're hearing is they need funds to support furthering the work. I think we should do that, and I appreciate the formula of a certain number per kid. That makes sense, and I think that's what you've proposed is reasonable. So I would be in support of it.
All right, Anne, I see your hand up.
I'd also like to speak in support of this and point out that the lobbying of the Rural Schools Community Alliance has already made a difference. The governor's plan looks dead in the water, and that is good. But that doesn't mean that we are not looking at possible future reform, and I think that the voices of these people are very important to what the future of Vermont schools look like. So I would like to speak in support of Tim's motion.
Okay. Yes, Tim.
Another sign of the lobbyist success is tomorrow, one of the RSCA's steering board committee members is going to be speaking to the House Committee on Education. That's what a lobbyist does. He gets our voice in the legislature.
Okay. Any other board members? I see a community member with a hand up. Liz.
Yeah, thank you. I really would like to see you support this. I was looking at the notes from the Senate Education Committee, and what they're proposing, it's not as bad as the governor's, but it's pretty bad. Anybody can go, onto the legislature's website and read what's happening there. And in the Senate Committee, Education Committee, they have our district going all the way up to Springfield and quite a bit. It would take in West River, it would take in more towns. I mean, they have us in this massive, and it's just not a tenable plan.
Yeah,
And,
thank you.
it wouldn't, so, please support them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Liz. Thank you very much. Any other board members? All right, are we ready to bring this to a vote? All right. The motion, can we hear the motion, please?
That the WSD board donate $4,626 to the Rural School Community Alliance.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, it passes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. It is now 7 o'clock, 7:02. I am going to propose that we take a 10-minute stretch break and then we will move to the administrative report. Okay? Thank you. So we will come back at 7:10. All right, so we've come back from break and we are going into the administrative report. Mark, I turn it over to you.
Okay, I'll start with resignation, then the new hires. So we have one resignation from Academy School, Teresa UC Shen, academic support teacher.
Okay, do you want to, well, I guess we should do it in the categories. Is there a motion to accept this resignation?
So moved with regret.
So moved with regret. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay, we have some new hires. Melissa White will be heading to Demerston School as a school nurse next year. Nicholas LaBelle will be the physical education long-term substitute in Putney. Stuart Osnow, BUHS social studies long-term sub. And late breaking news today, Samantha Stein has accepted the position as BUHS Dean of Students for next year.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept these 4 hires as indicated by the superintendent?
So moved.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions?
Super, and we have 2 Leadership Council requests for membership. Jocelyn Fritz for the Guilford Leadership Council, and Davida Bagatelle, Guilford Leadership Council. I don't know if I said that name correctly.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to accept these Leadership Council appointees to Guilford?
Point of order.
Point of order, I'm sorry. I thought it was a discussion point, sorry.
So I think that so Jocelyn is a board member, and so I just wanted to let particularly the new folks know that typically speaking there wouldn't be a mechanism of appointing a board member to particularly one that they're assigned, and the only times I'm a representative that is appointed to BUHS, but I serve on the Putney Leadership Council. So in that instance, Mark would present me.
Yes.
But so I would recommend that we only consider the second.
I think this, just as a point of information, what I realized is that the board member in question reached out to Guilford to become a part of that leadership council. Mm-hmm. And when I looked at the collection, the what do I want to say?
Assignments.
The assignments. It seemed to me the one from Guilford changed. The language changed. So it wasn't a letter coming from, let's say, the principal, but rather just a request. So it's presented a little differently. So my understanding is that this is a request by the board member to be formally a part of this particular leadership council. Does that change your view?
No.
No, it does not. Okay, got it.
No, so
okay.
it feels appropriate to, particularly if we as board members are appointed to like serve a leadership council, that's our role. And so we don't also act, like we aren't also appointed to the leadership council. And I think the mechanism of appointment in that way should really only be reserved for when you are acting, like if you
the
are
board representative.
You're not the board representative. If you
okay, I think this came about before the board assignments
happened. Yes.
This came about thank you very much.
Right.
This came about before the board assignment, so we know as of this evening that the board member in question is the board representative to Guilford. So we actually don't even need to deal with this. That's the point. We don't even need to deal with this. Okay. So so at this point we're going to change the wording of this motion. Is that right? And
I don't think we've made a motion.
We haven't.
There was
it hasn't been seconded.
It hasn't.
Oh, there was no motion. It was a point of order.
Right.
So be it. Yes. So is there a motion to accept Evita Bagatelli to the Guilford Leadership Council?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Good, thank you. All right, and that takes care of that.
Yeah. We've been asked for an update on the committee development around class rank at the high school. Ann and I have talked a bit about this, and I think Ann is prepared to give a very brief update of where we are in terms of that work.
So, and I went out to all staff a couple of weeks ago just asking for anyone that wanted to take part in the committee, and I've had 4 people respond so far. So right now it's a committee of 4. I'm hoping a couple more will join us, and then we'll get started on the process. We'll probably have our first meeting after April break.
Okay, and just a quick question, will the college advisor be part of that, your counselor?
So our dual enrollment coordinator is one of the people, one of our school counselors, and Janet Slazinski and myself are the 4 people that are currently.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then we do have a presentation tonight, which falls in the category of a sense of belonging connected to our CIP. So we're going to be talking a bit about student engagement and wellness. We have a number of folks here who are going to help with the presentation. Rebecca Olmstead, our nurse leader, Ricky Davidson, SAP counselor, Julianne, Keith, and Kelly. So these are examples of student engagement opportunities that doesn't paint the whole picture of how we approach student engagement, but I think we have some nice examples that we would like to share with the board and the community tonight. So that being said, I think Keith has shared his screen, so everybody should have the presentation in front of them. Or if you don't, maybe you're sitting next to somebody who has a screen that you can share with. And I think, are you starting us off, Julianne? Or is it Keith?
There's a slide about medical and dental programs.
Oh, okay.
Mine started?
We'll start with that.
Okay. Hello, I'm Rebecca Olmstead. I'm the school nurse leader. I represent the school nurses in the district, and there's 12 other school nurses. I just want to highlight 2 programs that make a difference for our students' physical, oral, and mental health. So we have 2 programs. We have our School to Dentist program and our school-based health center. So we have Both of these programs address health-related barriers for students so that they're able to access their education. The School to Dentist program, we have a partnership through Windham County Dental, which is right next to HCRS, so it's close to the high school. So when children have untreated cavities or dental pain, it impacts their entire life. They may not be able to sleep or focus. So we utilize 2 Wednesdays a month for this program. We have the program through Academy School and then also BUHS, BAMS, and Career Center. And recently we have opened up so that we can provide appointments for students in all of the schools. So I have connected with the Guilford school nurse, and we have offered appointments for Guilford students, and also I'm in communication with Green Street and Oak Grove. So the School to Dentist program, what we do is we provide transportation for students, and then they also block off appointments. So often enough, those are 2 huge barriers for our students to receive dental care. It's finding an appointment. Because we're close by to Windham County Dental, often they will, they'll call me and they'll say, we had a cancellation, can you drive a student over? And I utilize that. So then we also, obviously we provide transportation, and at Academy they do as well. So the students can be seen right away, and then they have that appointment time blocked off. And so just to give you some data, we had through the BUHS and BAMS program, we had 126 services provided to students. That's 95 doctor visits, so with the dentist, and then 31 hygiene visits. And so this has been since October.
Questions?
Yeah.
Who pays for it?
So these are students that their dental insurance covers the dental care. So the majority is Green Mountain Care. And then I provide the transportation. And yeah.
So all of our students have insurance, dental insurance?
Yes, that is a piece of it. If they don't have, we have had a couple of students that it may be that the insurance has lapsed. And then I work with the families to get them back on insurance.
Do the families pay for the premiums?
With most of our students, with Medicaid, there's not a cap on services. Right, and so I have some students where they have had 2 appointments a month just to catch up on their oral health needs, because they were having dental pain, they needed root canals, cavities. So there isn't a cap, so we fill the appointments, and yeah. And then at Academy, there's been 134 services provided, 86 doctor dentist services, and 48 hygiene visits. Any questions about the dental program? Any other questions? So the school-based health center, we started this last year. We are starting small, to make a manageable goal. We partner with Brattleboro Primary Care, and Dr. Richards comes to the BUHS health office once a month for the morning. She sees students for needed well child appointments, chronic disease management, medication checks. She's also been part of team meetings. And so this really helps families because it reduces absenteeism and provides accessible care to students. So students may not come to school because they have dental pain or untreated mental health concerns. And so we're able to reduce barriers so they can access their education. So some things that have really worked well is obviously we're providing time and space for appointments. We're reducing barriers. Some things that we, Dr. Richards and I and the nurses that we continue to work on is the paperwork. This is always cumbersome every year. So there's certain, because Brattleboro primary care requires certain forms to be filled out, and a lot of it can be online, but it's hard for families to be able to, complete the paperwork, because a lot of the times it might be families that feel overwhelmed because they can't make appointments, right? They don't have free time, and so we're reducing that barrier. But also at the same time, it's hard for them to complete the paperwork, and it can be cumbersome. And so we continue to work on that.
Such a great example of community partnerships as well, and extending, opening our doors to the health community, which is really inspiring. Thank you for your leadership and development of those programs. Okay.
All right, thanks everybody. So I'm Julianne Egan from Dummerston School. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about student wellness and engagement tonight. I wanted to highlight some of the work that our teams are doing, especially around social workers. For some schools, there's a longer history of having social workers inside the school building, and for others of us, like Dummerston School and Putney, for example, some of the outlying towns, we're still relatively new to having social workers in our building. This is our second year with a full-time social worker. And so I think when sometimes people think about that role, they might think of like, well, we have someone in our building who students are coming to see and sit down in the office with, and they get their time one-on-one with the social worker, and there's a caseload, and the social workers that they are meeting with students throughout the day. And that's actually not at all the model we've ended up using in Dummerston, and the model is really evolving in many of our schools as we really dial into the diversity of skills school social workers can bring to the school environment. And really utilize them in some, really innovative and exciting ways. It just so happened that several years ago, we ended up working with we hired Seth O'Connor, who is our school social worker, who came to us from Michigan. And in Michigan, often school social workers are actually the people who might work on IEP plans, specifically services in the plan around social skills for students. So Seth came to us with a model where he was used to kind of being in the classroom and doing work with students right then and there, like not behind the closed door in the office, but really out and about. And so as we really thought about our needs at Dummerston School, and we were in the process of building kind of a type of behavioral and emotional support team model, we were like, this actually is exciting because that's what we're really trying to build here. A different program than one headed up by a BCBA. Instead, we have a program that we've really struggled with what to name this program. Hannah Van Loan's back there probably nodding her head because Hannah's a para at a pre-K paraeducator, and what to call this program, right? But Seth will often call it Behavior and Emotional Support Program, because you can say BEST. That can be the acronym, that's always nice. But basically, this is a program which is really a set of practices and interventions. And so really what this program, the kind of vision, the mission of this program is, it's working with students, staff, and families to promote students' development of positive social and emotional skills in order to support students' full participation and inclusion in the classroom setting. Like that's our whole goal. That's why we're here, that's what we're doing. We believe that all students can thrive in the learning environment when staff and families are utilizing the same best practices in a coordinated manner, and we're setting and reflecting on goals together based on data, and we're accessing clear and effective monitoring and communication systems. So if we're all doing that, we are going to be starting to remove barriers to a student's full participation in their classroom. As I mentioned, we have our school social worker, Seth O'Connor, is the leader of this BEST team. We have one para dedicated to this team, and then really all the people who work with the student are on this team, and that would be classroom teachers, AST, paraeducators, family members, counseling staff, and myself as the principal. We would all be active members in this process. I wanted to give some context and say that this model fits within the MLSS framework, which you've all been learning, have learned about over the years as board members. But just to kind of set that scene, because I think it's important, at Emerson School, in terms of layer 1, when it comes to social, emotional, academic learning and wellness, all students receive the Developmental Designs Framework for Social, Emotional, Academic Learning, weekly personal development with the school counselor, restorative skill development and practice, and partnership with families, learning partnership with families. Some students beyond that will get, in layer 2, get small group skills instruction, additional social opportunities, at recess or lunch guided by an adult, increased opportunities for connection between family and school, simple plans for promoting positive behavior, more focused communication with the team, with home. And then really beyond that, some students require additional, really what then would be this BEST team coming in. So some of those BEST team interventions, it's a myriad of activities. It could include focused skill work with the guidance counselor or school counselor, a formal behavior plan with data collection systems, clinical support with the social worker. This can include safety plans, formal family support sessions. So the social worker might actually, we're doing all this work at school and it's working, or we want to partner with the families. We may invite the family in for focus sessions around, let's talk about vocabulary, let's talk about skills. Regular meeting with the teaching teams and families to review strategies for supporting success and progress toward the goal. And that's part of basically an EST process, right? So in order to have that kind of BEST team intervention, you're talking about an IEP or an EST plan that would guide that. The underlying principles really, again, just to go back to this critical idea, sometimes when we talk about different supports for students, we can almost lose sight, because the supports are so awesome, that sometimes we can lose sight of the fact that we want all students to be thriving in their learning environment, and all of us to be working together in coordination so that can happen. We want all students to realize that the classroom is a wonderful and amazing place to be. And so all these wonderful supports, we always joke that Seth and I often joke that we're trying to be a little boring because where the action is, where the growth is, where just the magic happens is in the classroom. And so there are a number of different underlying causes that can interfere with students' engagement in the classroom. I can't give you a profile, one profile of a student who is going to receive BEST intervention services. I can't, because there's so many possible different reasons. And the other piece with having this idea of this BEST model headed up by the social worker is we really felt like we don't need just one tool, we need like lots of different tools, not just one. And so, you know, when I think about just a couple of scenarios that, you know, that fit this model, you know, one might be the story, right, a kindergarten student who's experiencing challenges navigating relationships in the classroom, has frequent outbursts, behavior that might be like considered unsafe to self or others. And so the amount of time outside the room, right, is increasing. And that's like, whoa, that's something we have to get on right away. The best approach would be database, goal-driven behavior plan with specific interventions for skill development, family sessions with the social worker, the coaching of the whole team on best practices that really work with that student. The result is a student who graduated, you know, after receiving a year of these services, graduated from their EST, you know, and is a thriving second grader. Another example is a middle schooler really struggling to regulate during class due to, you know, symptoms of anxiety. Lots of time outside the classroom with escalated emotions, and then attendance begins to decline. So it's like, okay, all right. So the best team approach in that case was the student participating in a small social skills group, group around distress tolerance, learning strategies for distress tolerance with a couple of other middle schoolers. The result is, you know, after however many weeks of this intervention, the time outside the classroom declines significantly. The student can independently use a toolbox across a number of settings. Students developed a relationship with others working on the same skill. She's collecting her own data on herself, right? She's like self-monitoring, collecting the data, like able to actually see her strategies working in action and seeing this happen. And we're fully included in the classroom. And when we have a day, because we all have that, we all have a day, there's this plan in place that can be utilized. So I just wanted to give people kind of a little insight into, you know, when you think social worker and you think, here's what that means, it really varies. And I think, you know, there's a lot of innovation and just evolution of that role that can really benefit students pre-K through 12.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing, and we have been doing for a couple of years now, is investing in peer observation and providing opportunities for teachers to observe other like teachers in action and learn from systems that are being developed at different schools. So that is something that's actively happening in our school district. It's really exciting to see.
So the peer observations are going across schools?
Starting to go across schools, yeah. We started that systematically within our schools, and now we're expanding outside of our schools and visiting other schools in our school district.
Great.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk with you. I want to introduce Ricky Davidson, and he's from high school. Student assistance professional. We're going to talk to you a little bit about our most concerning data in our buildings. No. Why did we get assigned this fast? No. Yeah, so our youth risk behavior survey, if you're not familiar with it, it's linked in this slideshow, which I believe you've received. And it's pretty lengthy. The link has state averages compared to our averages, etc. But we created a little presentation for you. Well, Ricky created it, and I'm going to present some of it to you around some of our particular data. So bear with me as I, we're going to pass out those packets.
So I brought hard copies of the slideshow that I created for everybody, in case you want to see that. I created this geared specifically towards the high school, and so I can do it with teachers, with families, with you all, with whoever. So this is comparing 6 years worth of data including middle school.
So I forgot that this this wouldn't be projected up top, so I don't have the page numbers, but I'll go through these slides as quickly as I can. Youth risk behavior survey is done every 2 years, 6 through 12. And I'm not sure if our sixth graders were taking it, is it?
No.
I don't know if it's part of this data, but yeah.
Yeah, no.
So the data's 2 years old, almost exactly. So we just got the 2023 results, and we're currently, we have our 2025 tests scheduled for the next month. So it's interesting that it's quick data online that the kids are filling out, but it takes 2 years to process.
And the high school has already taken theirs 2025 surveys.
I'm going to skip to, if you're following the slideshow, using the youth risk behavior survey. Just we use it to start conversations, make people aware of the trends with kids, and to look at our programming and to try to figure out ways we can improve some of these numbers. Looking at our demographics slide there, so it goes 2019 on the right side, and the students whose data we're looking at right now for middle school, when they were in middle school, are now 9th and 10th graders in the high school. So that on the far right is their data from 7th and 8th grade year, and so just so that makes sense. So in 2019, the demographics have changed, and I think there's some interesting trends there. BIPOC in 2019, 17% of the students identified, and now 22%. A huge shift in LGBTQ+, from 18% 2019 to 36%. And the most recent, it's probably gone up since that. And heterosexual, cisgender, 82% 2019 to 64%. So huge shifts in some of those demographic numbers. Go on to the next slide.
Real quick too,
Yeah.
if I can just, on that same slide, also, 2023 was the first time they asked if students had an IEP or a 504.
Okay.
And 25% of our students in high school identified as having an IEP or 504. They do not ask that of the middle school students, they only ask that of the high school students. And we are 7% higher than the state average as far as the number of students that have an IEP or a 504.
We are what? Say it again?
7% higher than the state average.
What was the response rate?
The response rate.
These are the demographics of those who responded.
Yeah. It's about 3/4 of our student population responded, and their data was included because data gets scrubbed for identifying factors. So like for instance, in a small school like say Dummerston, not to pick on Dummerston, but in Dummerston small school, if there's only one student of color in their middle school who identifies as a student of color, their data is completely scrubbed because that'd be identifying data for that school. So they scrub data based on that at the federal level and then again at the state level.
I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly because there's a lot of them. Some of them I'm going to skip over unless Ricky has something to add, but I want to be quick. On the unintentional injuries, personal safety and violence, I just noticed on the middle school side, it says we're in a physical fight in the top right, 46%, and I'm thinking that's like in your life you've been in a physical fight because half the kids wouldn't have been in a fight during that school year. But it's still about half the kids have been in a physical fight, and 38% report being bullied online, and you notice that's a higher trend in a middle school than in the high school. Skipping to the next slide, the only thing that really jumped out to me here was the 2021 data on the top did not go to school because they felt unsafe or at school or on their way home from school. 67%, I think that was due to COVID. That would be my hypothesis because everything else is 15% on that one.
And they don't say why they were unsafe. That was never reported by the students. So it could have been COVID, it could have been other things. But because that's in the height of the COVID, 2020, most of the 2021 data is given a little bit of an asterisk because of what the national folks call a COVID bubble. And that is, I think he's right on about that, related to that, because they didn't go to school because they felt unsafe in relation to COVID situation.
And we all remember the conflict.
Yeah.
The rise in conflict in all of our schools coming back from COVID. That was a common agenda item that we would talk about at the board level during that time.
Now, interestingly, on the next slide, I thought maybe there would be a bump in this one. The top one is a concerning line to me looking at it. I thought maybe in 2021 there would be a larger number, felt sad or hopeless, but it's about the same as if now, or 2 years ago as it was in 2021. But those numbers are fairly high. They concern me. And 68% of our kids report that they've attempted suicide. So there's some concerning numbers there for us to be aware of.
And I will say too that the they break this down to the bigger level at some subcategories of students. So for both of these situations with attempted suicides, with hurting themselves and feeling sad or hopeless, our students who identify as female and our students who identify as LGBTQIA+ have higher rates than their male, cisgendered, white peers. So those numbers are higher in those two subcategories of students specifically.
I was going to skip over the sexual health one, so I'm going to look at that stuff. Go into lifetime substance use. I see a general decrease in this area. So if you look at the 2019 area, the place I highlighted was if they've ever used an electronic vape product, 52% in 2019 down to 35% 2 years ago. So hopefully that's lower now. So that's a great trend. And in general, a lot of those statistics, like ever drank alcohol, from 54 down to 47. Ever tried marijuana, 46 down to 42. So there's some good trends there.
Keith, what I would note is what's not listed on this is use of hallucinogens.
Yeah, it might be in the actual questionnaire is quite lengthy. Is that listed?
And it is, and there's multiple slides of current substance use. That first one that we're all just looking at is related to nicotine products, and we're moving on to others.
Yeah.
The further slides have other substances as well.
Hallucinogens?
Hallucinogens are not on this because the numbers are actually really small across the board, generally speaking.
My battery's running low, so let's hope I don't run out. All right, so current substance use, that's the slide I'm on at once. My battery's running low enough.
Do you have an HP?
Yeah.
Do you want my charger?
Sure. I have one in the back. Can't switch slides. Oh, all right. So the current substance use one that jumped out at me was that 26% of our kids in 2019 currently use a vape pen, and then it's dropped to 17% now, and hopefully that's even lower. And so the overall drop in those trends. Again, the next slide, current substance use, an overall decline. In that slide, that one's the one that talks about currently drink alcohol. So it goes like from 31% in 2019 down to 25%. So you can see the general decline in those areas. So I think we look at that as really positive data.
I would say it's a positive data trend for us, but also we tend to have higher averages than the rest of the state of Vermont.
Yeah.
So even though we're going in the right direction, even our low numbers are higher than other high schools in the state of Vermont in those categories.
And I freak out when I see any statistics in the middle school, like 5% currently drink alcohol. That's concerning in the middle school. So that's the reality. I was going to skip the other substance use. There's, for time's sake.
If I can just real quick, one of the things that I did want to point out that was a new question that was added this year under other substance uses. Ever lived with a parent or guardian who was having a problem with alcohol or drugs? 33% of our students reported that they did. So that's a third of our high school population in 2023 reported ever having lived with a parent or guardian with a substance use problem. And I would say that holds out anecdotally to what I see in high school.
Going to perception of substance use, I just wrote down these things seem to be harder to get now than in 2019. So you just see an overall drop in the reporting of their access to it by 8-10 percentage points in most areas. So that's a great trend. The perceptions of substance use, positive trends again. You can see that in 2019, the kids felt like it was wrong or very wrong for somebody to use vaping, 58%. You'd hope that that was 100%, but only 6 out of 10, but it's risen to almost 7 out of 10 feel it's wrong for someone their age to use it. And that general trend increases. It looked to me like, and Ricky, you can tell me if I'm wrong, that as they go up in age, that number changes. So,
Yes, it does.
So as they're in middle school, they have a high percentage of them report that it's wrong to do this, and as they get to their senior year, each grade they go, that there's fewer, and the parents feel the same way. Like the parents basically say, oh, my middle schooler shouldn't be doing this, but as they go along, they report less and less of that. So, and it's interesting, the parents, and it's probably on another slide, but they say that alcohol is, I think vaping is more concerning to them than alcohol or marijuana, which was also very interesting. So that's under perception of substance use. Yeah, you'll see that on this slide here where it says electronic vape products 87% on the far left, that slide. That's what I was just talking about. So parents, guardians feel like it's in the 80 to 90% range across the board for vaping. But when you look at alcohol and marijuana, it's more like much lower. So that's.
Quick question. Sorry if I missed this. Is it only students who are taking the survey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the students are.
This is all student reporting.
Okay, their perception of their parents.
Yes.
Okay, right.
Skipping to the obesity, overweight, I just saw some slight improvements there. So if you look in 2019, describe themselves as slightly or very overweight, 35%, and that goes down to 28% in 2023. And it goes from, we're trying to lose weight at 45% 2019 down to 37% in 2023. And I see it as a positive trend, meaning that there's more positive self-like perception of, I need to lose weight, and I'm an young child.
They were also not given any definitions of what was obese or overweight. So in the survey itself, it just says, do you believe you're obese? Something like that, not what a definition of obesity is. So it's that student's perception of that term and then how it applies to themselves.
A few more slides. I was going to skip the physical activity, and of course you can ask any questions about any of these, or Rick, you can add to anything. I was going to skip nutrition and physical activity.
I will just say real quick on both of those, in 2023 they changed the wording of the question from being more of a general, like, were you physically active at least 60 minutes per day on 5 or more days? And now they say that same statement, but in the past week. So they added in the past week to almost all the questions around physical activity and nutrition, which I think changes the perception, so we're not really, it's hard to compare apples to apples that way, because I think students might have, the week that they took the survey, maybe they didn't do physical activity 60 times in that past week. So they'd say no, whereas generally speaking they do, things like that.
Under protective factors, that slide, So from 2019 to 2023, that top section seemed to have improved. So this is talking about reporting there's at least one teacher or school staff that they could talk to if they have a problem. So it went from 70% 2019 to 77% 2023, so that's great. I noticed in the middle school section, when we look at our climate survey results, that number is much higher, so it's interesting. I would say it's at least 20 points lower on this.
And at the high school level too, on that one statement too, BUHS is 8% higher than the state average. So that's in a way in which we're trending in a really good way, that students are they can identify adults that they can talk to if they have a problem at a much higher rate than the rest of the state.
Ricky, you want to close up with a few takeaways and anything else we want to wrap up with?
I would just remind everybody that this is a snapshot in time, and the other piece to it is that a number of questions were changed, either slightly changed or were added or deleted from 21 to 23. Which is in some ways unfortunate because we can't compare apples to apples that way. And also I wish we could get this data a whole lot faster because we got this data the Friday before we went on the break, the holiday New Year's break. And then the high school, they did their survey in February for 2025. But we won't see that data. If we're lucky, we will see it sometime in 2026, late 2026. And they told us they were really excited about getting it to us early this year when they sent it to us the last Friday in December before 2024 ended. So, but it's a national database. It's done nationally. It goes to the CDC, and then it goes to the state, and then it gets aggregated down.
Any questions before we move on?
Anna, is there a committee of students that will address this, a health and safety committee of any kind to try to find solutions from the students themselves?
There hasn't been yet, but I will say there's a ton of different student committees, I think, that look at this.
And one of the clubs that I advise in the high school, Youth to Youth, which is the Prevention and Leadership Club, every other year after we get this data, they look at it, and part of what they do is they look at it with a lot of scrutiny about how accurate do they feel like it is, and then picking one or two things to try to improve. And one of the things that they're working on this school year is around perception of safety within the building, and that comes from a lot of the data that came from 2021. And that was their decision to choose to do that as their big project. And next week, when we have our next meeting, they're actually going to see the slideshow for the first time to look at it.
Kim, did you have
no,
Oh, okay, sorry, Ruby.
I had thank you so much. I've seen this presentation from Ricky when he gave it to the UHS Leadership Council. It was great then. Thank you so much for this information. My question is around the scrubbing process, which I realize isn't it happens before it gets to us. Yeah. But my concern, as I think about it, and I think about the outline, smaller schools, but just generally, how are the LGBTQIA plus kids, the BIPOC kids, those kids who whose experiences are really important and valid, but if they're maybe it's just the word scrub that I'm reacting to, but if their data isn't in there, but what does that mean? So at Putney, if there are 5 kids of color, right. And they're gonna get scrubbed out, and then
they might or they might not. It depends on how the questions are answered too. So I know I used that as an example, and maybe that was some misinformation. How they do the actual culling down of data, but they're trying to give everybody the most accurate set of data possible. So anything where there could be also any sort of where things don't align within the same survey, that data gets removed from this. But also they try to keep everybody's anonymity really, really important. So they do, and they have used that example when I've gone to trainings about this with small schools. It becomes, if there's a really identifying demographic features on a particular student, they will often remove that for that reason. But I think that when we get to the larger schools, like BAMS, like BUHS, then we get to pick up some of that data that we wouldn't have gotten necessarily in some of our smaller schools.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I would say your question is really important to the day-to-day work that's done every day at the school level. Reflecting on what Julianne presented to start the meeting. Getting data from 2 years ago isn't really that helpful. It shows some patterns, but the day-to-day work that we're doing, the check-ins that we're having with our students, with our children, and how we're working together as peers in our buildings is really, that's where we're gonna be intervening sooner than later, than a 2-year.
Matt?
Yeah, and I'm familiar with this survey from the prior employer. I believe that their data is still part in all the other questions. It's just when the demographics are pulled out.
Yeah.
That's where it's blanked out. But all of the responses on substance use or connection, all the other areas, it's included with the whole population.
All right, that's
so their voices are still in there.
Okay.
Right.
That's helpful.
Thank you. I was confused about that as well. Yeah. Brian?
To what you were just saying, Mark, and to what Ricky added about students' response to this, how are staff, teachers, and so forth given an opportunity to respond to this and work it into the day-to-day work that they see they could see as being different because it's 2 years old data. So my question is what opportunity do teachers and other staff have to look at this and strategize?
Hasn't been a huge focus for us. I think part of the reason Mark underlined, and we have other things that kind of give us similar, like student climate survey data. So, and some of these things are a little bit outside of our, like, do they wear a bicycle helmet? There's questions like that. So we haven't put a ton of time into it at the middle level. I know Nancy Goodhue, our health teacher, and Lauren Teacher, our SAP person, they do a lot of work looking at it. Nancy teaches health, so it can help inform her curriculum work, areas of concern. Administratively, we look at bullying data that kids are reporting, and it's fairly high rates in middle school, so we look at that. We're concerned about those kind of trends. And then around like tobacco and alcohol use and our awareness training with kids around those topics. So, but I wouldn't say in all the ways that we're pulled all over the place and different things, this isn't high on our list at BAMS, but it's certainly relevant data.
And I would agree too, at the high school level, we use it in a variety of different ways depending on the roles of the folks. And we have done some, in the past, we have done some PD related to everybody getting this information, and then what are people's thoughts and feelings and ideas around how to address some of this stuff, some of the specific issues that maybe they could have some impact in. So we have looked at that in the past, and we'll continue to do that, I think. And the other thing too is, and it's been mentioned a couple times too, is that I look at this as, even though it's 2-year-old data, it's a good benchmark for that moment in time, and you add that to climate survey data and other things, then you get a much whole picture around where we really are and what we can do. So it's taking data from a variety of different sources to come together to then make plans to address certain topics and issues.
So this data is not broken out by school. It's the district. Is that correct?
Grade level data. So the high school data is pretty much the high school data. The 7-8 data includes Putney and Dummerston.
Right. Okay. Did I see another hand? Tim.
Yeah, so the student climate survey is done twice a year, and there's the opportunity to add our own questions for comments from the students. I would think that this might drive the creation of some particular questions you want to ask.
That's great.
Other comment, questions? Thank you. This has been a very informative presentation. Rebecca, thank you. Julianne.
There's
still one more element that Kelly Diaz is going to
Okay,
speak to.
okay. No, that is fine. That was not meant to push along. I felt a pause and I was not quite sure.
No,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to make sure this, transitioning topics completely from
Yes.
a pretty heavy topic.
Mhm,
I'm ready to start if you are ready. I'm gonna talk a little bit about wellness supports for and outreach for multilingual learners. We've talked a few times over the years since 2022 when we started receiving more newcomers through ECDC. So our district has always had a pretty strong population of multilingual learners, but has grown significantly and rapidly since 2022 when we started really partnering with ECDC. So we currently have 55 students pre-K to 6th grade and 98 total in our district who are multilingual learners. Many of which are newcomers to our country in the past couple of years. Some were born here and speak a language other than English at home. I also want to just say I dreamt of filling these slides with beautiful pictures of our kids and I didn't get to do it, but so it's text heavy, but at some point I would love to send you some pictures of our kids. So really our goal is collaboration, and I'm speaking through an elementary lens because that's what I see and work with every day, but at the high school it's also a really vibrant program as well. So highlighting the collaboration that's done, we have 2.8 staff at Academy School and for the district for elementary who service our multilingual students, and really we work to ensure that families with students who receive multilingual support feel a sense of belonging in our schools. So when they move, we try to bring them in for a tour right away as soon as they arrive into town. We talk a lot about community resources that they can access, where they're living, how to take the transportation, the mover, things like that. They often have sponsor families who also help with that. Our multilingual students have great attendance. They're really excited to come to school each day. Many of them take the bus to and from school, and the bus company has been really flexible in knowing that at any time we may have move-ins. So needing to reroute and accommodate those learners has been a big important part that's kind of tricky sometimes because it changes timing for all of the buses and the kids. So that's been another partnership that's been successful. We have a lot of outreach and communication in whatever the home language is with the family. We make sure it's accessible. A lot of times the caregivers are not literate, they may not be able to read. So we work with translation services via the phone quite a bit to make sure that they can understand what our school day looks like, what they need to know about sending their students to a brand new school in a brand new town in a brand new country. We've done a lot of foundational work with our classrooms and our kids about how to welcome everybody. And it's really become a norm. A lot of times kids will say, when are we getting a new student? And it's just something they really look forward to at this point and embrace. And we have a buddy system so that new kids, and not just multilingual, but all kids have somebody that they can shadow for the day, and they show them the routine, where to go, what to do. Every student has a rich academic experience with supports they need to access their education. Sometimes kids come in the upper elementary grades and they've never been to school before. So they're learning foundational literacy and math skills. And it's really important to all of us that they feel that sense of belonging and they don't feel isolated, and that they're working on the same grade level topics as their classmates and their peers. So there's a lot of buddying up with different classrooms so that it's they can go into younger grades and volunteer and also pick up some of the content that's happening in there that's appropriate for their academic level while also being a leader. And then they have a mixture of getting push-in services through our multilingual teachers as well as being pulled out for small groups throughout the day. All of our teachers are educated in the SIOP model. I linked that
So it's one of our many acronyms in the field of education. It's the Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. It's a research-based model for planning and delivering lessons that supports and scaffolds instruction for our kids. And all of our teachers take the All Kids class, which is taught by Deb Coombs and Jen Course. And really amazing class. It's really good for all kids. That's why it's called All Kids. What's good for all kids is really good for multilingual learners. So they're building in visual supports, they're building in ways to scaffold a lesson so that it's accessible for everybody. And also thinking about how to have a trauma-informed lens as we work with multilingual learners. In classroom management, school looks really different in different countries, and a lot of times is separated by gender. And that's not the case here. And they also have different times of day where they might need to have religious observances, things like that. So we try to build in as much as appropriate. They are coming to us with varied levels of trauma, some that we know about, some that we don't know about. The kids and families disclose to us at, their personal comfort level, and don't always want wellness supports or therapy in that way. So just taking it as it comes and knowing how to handle it in a way that feels safe and appropriate for all of the families is something we've really worked on. Translation, I cannot speak highly enough of these teachers. They spend hours translating every single thing that goes home for families. Right now we have 14 languages at Academy, and for everything from after school program, sign-up sheets, to conference forms, to everything. They're translating it. They're using an app to text the families. Remember, tomorrow's a half day. All of the things that happen, they're so tied in. They're outside making sure every kid gets on the bus with a checklist every single day. It's the highest level of care that you could ask for. It's really moving. They put notes on backpacks. They attend all the conferences. It's really pretty special to witness. And then CDC has played a really integral part, and hopefully can continue that work depending on their funding, but just keeping families connected throughout the town and helping them navigate, living in a new place. My last slide pertains to after-school programs, so I can pause and see if there's any comments or questions about multilingual learners before I talk briefly about that. Go ahead.
Ruby.
My question actually has to do with kind of exposure, for folks who are not multilingual learners, kids. I know in Putney, before there was, when there was the first kind of wave of refugees, particularly from Afghanistan, we had a kid who it was wonderful, and it just so happened that our family knew this family and were able to be a support for them. And that was really helpful, and it also, but then that kid cycled away, and we don't have any multilingual language learners, particularly refugee status. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is I wonder about, I think there's a real benefit for all kids at having exposure and access to different cultures, particularly because we're all cycling into VUHS. And I thought this recently because I think I came to an event here, and it was right when people were leaving school. And I saw so many. I saw, women in headscarves. I saw many, many different cultures walking by. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. And to someone who has had no exposure, to a kid who's never, ever seen anyone other than a face that looks just like theirs in their class. That's a lot. So I just wonder if there's any intention or plan or thoughts around how do we, get the benefits that, like at the other schools, that you might be experiencing at Academy in terms of the multi-language learners there. you don't have to answer, that's just kind of,
Yeah.
that's like a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
It's a really good point and a really good question, and I just immediately thought, how can you replicate the day-to-day life and routine of it? Because I was thinking about it at All School Sing today, so we were doing this partner dance where you switch partners 18 times and it's chaotic and beautiful, and I danced with several of our multilingual students, and I was just thinking like, wow, look at this, like here they are, and half of them are still learning basic English, but we're all dancing and we're mimicking movements, and that comes with the daily exposure and life. So how do we translate that to the bigger picture? I don't know, more district-wide events, I guess. Yeah, it would be a really great goal to set. So I think that's really true when they all matriculate to the same place. How do we build that? Like this is our population, these are our kids.
Brian?
Yeah, just to expand on that, I think what you're referring to, Ruby and Kelly, is that there's a tension between having folks who have some of the similar needs grouped together so that you can deliver and help them, support them with those needs, and the advantages that we get from people being around people who are different from us, which ideally I think would be spread throughout the whole system. We have a very small system, and we have a very small number of people who are multi-language learners, and so it makes sense to put them all together where they can get some of the same resources. But it does raise the question: how do other people from all the other schools take advantage of that and learn from our differences, which is the real advantage to having these folks enter our community. So I think what it means then is when they get to the middle school and when they get to BUHS, that there needs to be, and I'm not saying there isn't, but there needs to be real concerted efforts to replicate some of the things that you're doing at Academy so that we can take advantage of the differences that people have and turn those differences into assets for everybody.
And the flip side of sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just thinking, if we did sort of parcel out our population, it becomes then that smaller group at each site that doesn't have the big community to rely on as well, and research-based, decisions as far as building community and introducing people who are new to the area and having them be at the same school feels important. And being the biggest sending school to middle school and high school, we've got 353 kids, I think, as of today, and BAMS has 300-ish, 260. So I always tell Academy kids when they're nervous to go to BAMS, like, it's smaller than us, don't worry about it. But thinking about that our kids will know the most kids when they get to BAMS, I think. I was actually just meeting with 6th grade leaders today, and I said, you can make this change happen. I was talking about targeted bias, but same thing. As far as if you know how to do this, you can be a leader and you can teach others when you get there. So thinking about our leadership program, and we just had that beautiful day at Landmark a couple weeks ago, which highlighted 6th through 12th grade, or really age 21 leaders. That's some of the work that those groups can do as well.
So, Kelly, you remind us how tragic it is that the current administration in DC has cut off this flow of refugees to Vermont and Brattleboro. That's just a horrible shame. But my question is about ECDC. So they have about 30 college-bound refugees whose English is very good. And I understand that they've spent at least 30 hours in the academy. What are they doing there?
They are supporting kids at recess, at lunch. They're not alone with kids. They're working with teachers and kids, but they're in classrooms. One of them happened to be from Sudan, and the classroom they were visiting was reading a book about Sudan, so it turned into this big question and answer, impromptu visit. But really, they're just there, lending their services. They're crafting. They might volunteer for the craft fair prep which is open to the community at large. Any kid can register to be a part of it, but
I wonder if they can do something in the other schools.
Absolutely. I think the biggest barrier for them is transportation. It took them 2 hours to get to Academy on the Mover from SIT. So if we could utilize, like a BAMS bus or the Career Center bus or some kind of vehicle that could get them to and from schools, they would be delighted. I know they want to be busy. Some of them have gotten jobs already. I've seen them at Hannaford working, but I know they're hungry for experience. Their English is excellent. They're super excited to be here. Great with the kids, so yeah, I would love to see them get out and about.
I'm trying to frame my thoughts. So there is terrific support that exists at Academy. And then these kids move on to BAMS and they move on to the high school. And this is more rhetorical than anything else, but those supports still need to be in place as they move on and they're no longer effectively clustered together with adult support. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think Deb and Jen, thank you,
Yes.
work like magic together to support all of our students in all grades in this district.
Right.
I think one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of, which is like an appreciation for our refugee students and what they bring to our community, which I love. And I also want to just respect the fact that while it would be great for all of our other students to be able to also see that, like what we need to focus on is supporting them in our community.
Yes.
And that I think we do an excellent job of. And I think that Deb and Jen both are very strategic in their planning on how these students can be best supported while being part of our communities. In those small clusters, like even in the they talk about specifically breaking out, like here's the courses we need them to take. We would like a couple to be in all these classes because this is how we support them best, but we want them to be part of the bigger community. And so I think that is happening in daily conversations.
And also remembering that, something that we work on a lot as an administrative team too is people who are coming directly from experiences, who are multilingual, who are diverse, are not responsible for educating us about their cultures.
Thank you very much.
And that's really, really important.
But that's really critical.
Yes.
And it's the responsibility of the majority culture to educate itself. I know there have been studies done when you have 2 or 3 students in a large school who, for want of a better word, represent diversity. Do you then spread them out, or do you bring them together so that they can bond and feel secure? So, yes, thank you for that comment. Yes.
And there are a ton of other affinity groups within all of our schools that do that work. So, and I know, we could spend like a whole day talking about this. I'm super passionate, and I know we all are. But just remembering that this is one lens of our work, but we do have a lot of different groups that are doing this work through other lenses as well. And Ricky's a big part of that too.
And I just want to give a quick shout out to, I want to give a quick shout out to Linda Alvarez, who is our business teacher. She has students from our New Vermonters community in her class, her business classes, and one of her students wrote an outstanding college essay, determined that his first choice was Champlain College, and he has been awarded a full scholarship, including room and board and fees and books and everything else to Champlain for the next 4 years. So that's just amazing.
So I will close briefly by switching to after school programs. Again, Academy Lens, BAM has an excellent program as well. Other schools have excellent programs. Just an example quickly, we have 3 sessions per year that last for 6 to 8 weeks of after school programming. Students are chosen by lottery. We try to make sure that every student's chosen at least once per year to participate if they want to. There's options for every grade level. They're an hour long. Students meet in the gym, they get an after-school meal, and it is a meal, it's not just a snack. They have a pretty substantial amount of food served to them, and then they participate in their program, and then we have an after-school bus that provides transportation home. So, getting access for all to get there and get back. This session might be a new record. We have over 200 students participating in this session at Academy, which is amazing and really busy. We have a lot of community partners, Insight Photography, the Brattleboro Music Center, which, Oak Grove, Green Street, and Academy. We meet at Academy, but all 3 schools participate. We've also had kids from Putney come. My understanding is it is open to the other schools, just transportation would be the issue. The Brattleboro Museum and Art Center comes in. We do Girls on the Run, NEYT, and many more. And staff members really are able to just kind of share their personal passions and interests, anything from crafting, sewing, Muay Thai, Quidditch, disc golf, running, snowshoeing. There's all sorts of different programs, and it's really fun to watch. You're welcome to come any time and see it in action. The kids are really engaged, and a lot of kids who are hesitant to come to school or have tardiness or absenteeism, on the day they have that after school program, they are there bright and early. So that's been a huge incentive. And Shelley Doubleday is our after school program coordinator as well as our planning room coordinator, and she wrote just a quick letter that I put on the slide. I won't read it verbatim, but just really highlighting her commitment. She's been at Academy for 21 years. And she spends hours and hours making sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to access these programs. She is just phenomenal at organizing all of this. And she did interview some kids and say, what is the best part about after school programs? So their responses were pretty sweet. They love to learn to crochet with Nurse Amy, moving their body on the scooter, playing Legos, reading books at book club, running laps and learning Muay Thai, eating snack together, making a new friend on the bus. So just little ways that increase our sense of belonging that is so important to our continuous improvement as a school district that leads to engagement and therefore achievement.
Any other comment? This is, yes,
Can I
Tony.
ask a quick question? What grade does your after school program start at?
Kindergarten.
Is it kindergarten?
Yes.
Okay.
This has been a phenomenal evening. Thank you. It's the support that exists and the energy that exists in this district is phenomenal. And the 5 this evening who have presented, Kelly and Ricky, Keith, Julian, and Rebecca. I went in the reverse order this time. I know that you are doing the presentation tonight, but you are the tip of the iceberg of the structure because it doesn't exist it couldn't exist with just the 5 of you, and that's really evident. Thank you very, very much this evening. Thank you. Well worth staying here and hearing this, ending the evening with this.
And I think for the first time in a long time, our annual report this year is really a reflection of all of this work.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, thank you.
It's a good read if you haven't really dug into it, but there's a lot of information in the annual report that covers everything that we talked about tonight and much more.
Right. I'm going to move down the agenda this evening. I do not believe there is a fiscal report this evening.
No.
There is none. Okay, we're going to move to the consent agenda with that slight change to the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? Second, I've got from Brian. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Thank you. We're moving on to unfinished business. The Policy and Amendment Committee presents for readoption 3 policies. D1, personnel, recruitment, selection, appointment, and background checks. F16, head lice, and F28, student activities. Is there a motion to approve these 3 policies for readoption?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, any discussion? I'm sorry, yes.
No worries. I noticed a typo in one of them.
Oh.
I don't know if that's.
Goodness.
On F16, page 1, paragraph 3.
Mm-hmm.
The first line reads lead lice, and I think it should read head lice.
Lead lice sounds way better though.
Where are we? Okay, paragraph 3.
Yes.
Paragraph 3. 1, 2, 3.
I think it's
lead lice. Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, thank you very, very much. Great catch. Okay. Put me to shame as a former grammarian. Oh, man. So my question now is, with this edit, can we approve it for readoption?
I feel like it's a non-substantive edit.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
It's a letter mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. There is a motion, it's been seconded. Can we bring this to a vote? Okay, all those in favor of approving these 3 policies for readoption, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? All right. Before we sort of conclude this evening, just an announcement about April 8th, which is our next meeting. It's taking place at Guilford Central School, and I would like to begin at 5:15 in the evening with an executive session. And I don't know if you want to know the details about that executive session. It is 1 VSA 313A7, the academic records or suspension or discipline of students. And I'm assuming we're going to need about 45 minutes. Mark Spino will be invited in, as well as every principal. Okay, so I just wanted to make that announcement.
And every principal?
That's what I said.
Okay.
Yep, to my knowledge, every principal, yes.
We're
5:15.
invited or you want us? People.
Command performance.
There we go. Good question, Keith, and nice catch, Mark. All right. Any new business? All right.
Madam Chair, there being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? We are adjourned at 8:32.